Let me tell you about the exact moment my father's face went white. It was a Thursday night, a little before 8, and he was sitting at the best table in the most expensive French restaurant in Pittsburgh. A bottle of champagne sweating in a silver bucket beside him, celebrating my sister. He had just wiped his mouth with a linen napkin and reached for his phone out of habit, the way he always did, checking the markets, checking the news, staying tethered to the world he believed actually mattered. And there, at the top of his screen, was a breaking news alert. A Pittsburgh teacher had just won the highest honor in American education, live, on national television, in front of millions of people. He almost scrolled past it. Pittsburgh had thousands of teachers. What were the odds? And then he saw the photograph, and the phone nearly slipped out of his hand, because the woman on that stage, shaking hands with the Secretary of Education, was me. The daughter he had called, 2 days earlier, just a lowly teacher. My name is Harper Ellison. I am 32 years old, and I spent almost my whole life being the daughter my family forgot to love. If any part of this sounds like your own family, stay with me until the end, because the end is the part I wish someone had told me years ago. That is the only thing I will ask of you tonight. Now let me take you back 3 weeks. To the day a single envelope changed everything. The autumn sun was going down behind Lincoln Heights Middle School when I finished wiping down the last whiteboard in room 214. That room had been my second home for 8 years. One entire wall was covered in thank you cards from students, handwritten notes in crayon and marker and shaky pencil, some of them from kids who had never written a letter to anyone before they met me. I was packing my bag when my phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Harper, honey," she said, before I could even say hello. "I just wanted to let you know that Sloan won her big case today." "The pharmaceutical one, you know, the one." I smiled, because I meant it. "That is wonderful, Mom," I said. "Tell her congratulations." Her voice practically glowed through the speaker. "We are planning a dinner this weekend to celebrate. Your father is beside himself. He has already called everyone he knows." "That sounds nice," I said. "And, Mom, before I forget, I actually have something I want to." There was a shuffling sound on her end. "Oh, sweetie," she cut in. "I have to call Sloan back. She is waiting on me. We will talk later." "Okay," I said. "Sure, Mom, I actually had." And the line went dead. I stared at the phone until the screen faded to black. On my desk sat an unopened envelope, thick cream paper, an official seal from the United States Department of Education. I had been carrying it in my bag for 2 days, waiting for the right moment to share the news, a moment that somehow never seemed to come. I picked it up and ran my thumb across the raised letters. National Teacher of the Year Selection Committee. Inside was an invitation that most teachers never receive in an entire career. I was one of 4 finalists in the country. The ceremony would be in Washington. The Secretary of Education would present the award personally. It would be broadcast live. I looked at the wall of thank you cards. At least someone thought I mattered. This was not the first time I had been cut off in the middle of a sentence. 3 years earlier, at my master's graduation, my parents arrived 2 hours late and blamed traffic. The next morning, I overheard my mother on the phone, telling my aunt that they had made it just in time the night before for my sister's bar association dinner, where Sloan had looked stunning accepting an award. They had left my ceremony early. They never told me. 2 years earlier, on my 30th birthday, not one of them called. 3 days later, my mother texted, "Oh, honey, was your birthday last week? Time really does fly. Let us do lunch soon." We never did. Last Christmas, when Sloan announced a promotion, my father opened a bottle of wine he had been saving for 15 years. When I mentioned that my students had raised enough money to buy new books for the school library, he nodded without looking at me and asked my sister about her bonus. I had learned slowly and painfully to stop expecting, but this letter was different. I read it again slower. "Dear Miss Ellison, we are honored to inform you that you have been selected as a finalist for the National Teacher of the Year Award. Your nomination was submitted by a distinguished educator whose identity, per our tradition, will remain confidential until the ceremony. A distinguished educator, someone who believed in me enough to put my name forward for the highest honor in the country." My heart beat faster. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe if they saw the government's seal, the words Washington and Secretary of Education, maybe then they would finally understand. I opened the family group chat and started to type. A week went by. I carried that invitation everywhere, in my bag, on my nightstand. I read it so many times the folds began to wear thin. Finally, I decided it was time to tell them, and I rewrote the message 11 times. The first draft was 3 paragraphs long, explaining what the award meant, how rare it was, who would be there. Too desperate, I deleted it. The second draft was a single line, "Hey, I am up for an award, want to come," and it felt like I was apologizing before I had even asked. By the 11th draft, I had stripped it down to what mattered. "Hi everyone. I have some news. I have been selected as a finalist for the National Teacher of the Year Award. The ceremony is October 21st in Washington. It would mean the world to me if you could be there. I have attached the official invitation with all the details. Love, Harper." I attached the file with the Department of Education letterhead, the gold seal, the formal language about honoring the finest educators in America. My thumb hovered over the send button for a full minute. What if they said no? What if they laughed? What if they said nothing at all? But what if, just this once, they showed up? I pressed send. Then I waited. I made dinner, checked my phone, graded papers, checked my phone, watched half of a show I do not remember, checked my phone. Nothing. By midnight, the message showed as read by all three of them. No reply. I fell asleep with the phone on my pillow, screen facing up like a child, waiting for a light to come on in the hall. At 7:42 the next morning, I woke to a notification, and my heart jumped. 3 gray dots appeared under my father's name. He was typing. Finally, after all these years, maybe. The dots vanished, then came back, then a message appeared. My father's reply was 11 words long. It said, "Just a lowly teacher's award. I am not flying to Washington for that." I read it 3 times, and each time the words cut a little deeper. Just a lowly teacher. Before I could even breathe, my sister's message appeared underneath. "Sorry, H. Devin and I have dinner plans that night. Cannot cancel. It is important, you understand." And then she added a little smiley face. I waited for my mother to say something, to defend me, to suggest they move the dinner, to acknowledge that her daughter had done something most teachers only dream of. Instead, a small line appeared at the bottom of the screen. Maureen Ellison liked Sloane's message. That was it. No words. No congratulations anyway, honey. No, we will celebrate when you are back. Just a little thumbs up on my sister's rejection of me. My chest tightened around that old, familiar ache. The one I had carried since I was 12, watching my father tape my sister's report card to the refrigerator, while mine went straight into a drawer. I set the phone down, picked it up, set it down again. What do you even say to people who have made it so clear that you do not matter? I typed 2 words. That's fine. I did not cry. I had stopped crying over my family years ago. Instead, I felt something harder settle into place. A decision. I would go to Washington alone. I would sit in that audience by myself, and whether I won or lost, I would know that I had earned my seat in that room. My phone buzzed once more. Another message from my sister. By the way, she wrote, "You really should think about a career change. Teaching is not going anywhere, just trying to help." I turned the phone off. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment. A 1-bedroom walk-up that my father had once described as depressing, and my sister had once called quaint, in a sad sort of way. I looked at my master's degree hanging on the wall, highest honors. 3 years of night classes, while I taught full-time during the day. My father had missed that graduation too, and then, as if the universe had timed it, my phone lit up in the dark. The caller was my grandmother, my mother's mother, Grandma Iris. I answered before the second ring. "Harper, sweetheart." Her voice was warm and steady, everything my parents' voices were not. I heard about the nomination. I paused. "How did you hear about that?" "Oh," she said, and I could hear her smiling word travels in education circles. "Did you tell your parents?" My silence was the whole answer. "Ah," she said softly. She always understood. "Harper, listen to me. Did you read the nomination letter carefully?" "I did," I said. "It said the person who nominated me wanted to stay anonymous. And," she prompted, "it mentioned they had nominated 7 teachers over the course of their career." My breath caught in my throat. "How do you know exactly what the letter says?" My grandmother had been a school principal for 35 years. Before she retired, she had taken 3 failing schools and turned them into models that people traveled across the country to study. In education circles, her name carried a weight I had never fully understood. "Let us just say," she said gently, "that I have a few old friends on that committee." Her voice softened even more. "Harper, I will be at the ceremony." "I would not miss it for anything in this world," Grandma, I said. "You do not have to fly all that way." "I will be there," she said, in a tone that left no room for argument. "And Harper, do not spend 1 more minute worrying about your parents. The truth has a way of finding people, usually when they least expect it." "What do you mean by that?" I asked. She only said, "Just focus on your speech, sweetheart. I will see you in Washington." And she was gone, and I sat there with my heart pounding, wondering what on earth she knew that I did not. 2 days before my flight, my mother called. "Harper, We are having a family dinner on Sunday. Your father insists. He wants everyone together. Mom, I said, I have to pack. It is only dinner, sweetheart, she said. Sloane has some exciting news to share. Of course she did. I arrived at my parents' house at 6 on the dot. The dining room table was set with the good china, the set they only used for the occasions that counted. Candles flickered, wine breathed in a crystal decanter. My sister sat at the head of the table, glowing. Harper, she said, rising to air-kiss the space beside my cheek. So glad you could make it. Her husband, Devin, gave me a polite nod. He had always been quiet around my family, an observer rather than a player. My father raised his glass. Before we eat, he said, I would like to propose a toast. To Sloane, who just made partner at Halloran and Reeve, the youngest partner in the history of the firm. Partner. I looked at my sister. Congratulations, Sloane, I said, and I meant it. That is genuinely impressive. Thank you, she said, smoothing her silk blouse. It has been a long time coming. My mother beamed at me across the table. You see, Harper, she said, that is what hard work looks like, real results, real success. I set down my fork. Sloane, my father went on, tell your sister what the new salary is. Dad, my sister laughed, that is tacky. Go on, he said. She should know what ambition can achieve. My sister shrugged. Let us just say it is substantial. 7 figures, my father announced proudly, to the whole table, my daughter. 7 figures. The table went quiet. Everyone looked at me. That is wonderful, I said quietly. My father leaned forward. So, Harper, what is new with you? Still teaching those, 8th graders? 7th and 8th, I said. Right, he said, nodding slowly. And that little ceremony you mentioned, when is that again? Tuesday, I said. Ah, he said, picking up his wine. The teacher appreciation thing. It is the national teacher of the... I started. Right, he said, waving his hand through the air. Cute. My sister tilted her head with that condescending little smile I knew so well. So H, she said, what exactly does a teacher make these days, if you do not mind my asking? I knew exactly where this was going. Around 51,000 a year, I said. My sister glanced at her husband and suppressed a laugh. Honey, she said, that is less than my monthly bonus. Devin shifted, uncomfortable in his seat. My father nodded gravely. You see, Harper, this is exactly what I have been saying for years. Teaching has no future, no growth. You are a smart girl. You could have done anything. I did do something, I said. Keeping my voice level, I chose to teach. But why? My mother asked, leaning in, genuinely baffled. You could have been a lawyer like your sister. You could have gone into business like your father. Instead, you are stuck in some classroom with other people's children. I love my students, I said. Love does not pay the bills, my father said. My bills are paid, I said. Barely, my sister murmured, sipping her wine. I mean that apartment. No offense, but it is kind of. Kind of what? I asked. She shrugged. Sad. It is sad, Harper. I set my napkin down, slowly, deliberately. I am sorry my life does not meet your standards, I said. We are just worried about you, my mother said, in that wounded tone she used like a weapon. As your family. Good at being underpaid, maybe, my sister muttered under her breath. But I heard every word, and then something happened that I did not expect. Devin cleared his throat, and he leaned toward me, and he said, so quietly that only I could hear it, for what it is worth, I think what you do matters. My 3rd grade teacher changed my life. Our eyes met. He nodded, once, then looked away as if he had said too much. I filed that moment away carefully. The first sign of an ally in enemy territory. Dessert arrived. I had not touched my main course. I should go, I said, reaching for my purse. Early flight tomorrow. Already, my mother frowned. But we have not even talked about Sloane's promotion party. It is next month. We are renting out a ballroom. I will check my calendar, I said. My sister smirked. Let me guess, she said. Flying economy to your little ceremony, teacher salary and all. I paused at the doorway and turned back. Actually, I said, the Department of Education covers all travel for the finalists, 1st class. The table went silent. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The Department of Education, he said, for a teacher award. It is a national award, Dad, I said, holding his gaze. Broadcast live. The Secretary of Education presents it personally, but you would not know that. Why would I not know that? He said. Because you did not read the invitation I sent you, I said. No one spoke. My sister's smirk faltered. Anyway, I said, pulling on my coat. Congratulations again, Sloane. Enjoy your party. I drove home in silence. No radio, no podcast, just the hum of the engine and my own thoughts. At a red light, my phone buzzed with an email. Miss Ellison, it read, this is Dana Alvarez from the CNN Education Desk. We would like to request a brief interview before Tuesday's ceremony. Your nomination has generated significant interest. Please confirm your availability at your earliest convenience. CNN, I read it twice, 3 times. My family thought I was going to some little ceremony, a pat on the back, a participation trophy. They had no idea. And for the first time, I realized I did not want to tell them. I would let them find out on their own. Some truths are better discovered than delivered. Monday morning, my suitcase sat by the door. One modest bag, carefully packed, professional dress, comfortable shoes, the speech I had rewritten 40 times. My principal, Dr. Curtis Boyd, called just as I was locking up. "Harper," he said, "I wanted to catch you before you left. The whole school is rooting for you. We are planning a watch party in the cafeteria." "Dr. Boyd," I said, "that is, you do not have to." "Are you kidding?" he said. "Lincoln Heights has never had a National Teacher of the Year finalist. This is historic." Then he paused. "Harper," he said, "do you know who nominated you?" "The letter said they wanted to remain anonymous," I said. "Well," he said, "I have been in this profession for 30 years, and I hear things." His voice dropped. "The person who put your name forward is a legend in our field. She has only ever nominated 7 teachers in her whole career." My pulse quickened. 7, I said. All 7 won. I gripped the phone tighter. "Who is she?" "I cannot say for certain," he said, "but Harper. She was a principal for 35 years. She turned 3 failing schools completely around. The Secretary of Education calls her personally for advice." He let that sink in. "Whoever nominated you did not do it lightly. They saw something extraordinary." "Dr. Boyd," I said, but my mind was already racing. "Go to Washington," he said gently. "Hold your head high. And Harper, your family may not understand what you have built, but we do. Your students do. And that is what matters." I hung up, my thoughts spinning. A woman, a legendary educator, 35 years as a principal. It could not be. My phone buzzed with a text from my grandmother. "Safe travels, sweetheart. Cannot wait to see you tomorrow. I have a few old friends who are very eager to meet you." Old friends. What was she planning? The flight to Washington was surreal. First class meant a glass of champagne before takeoff. A seat that reclined all the way. A flight attendant who called me Ms. Ellison, as though I were someone worth remembering. I was not used to being treated like I mattered. A black car was waiting at arrivals, a driver holding a small sign with my name on it. He took my bag, opened my door, and drove me to the Hay Adams, a hotel I had only ever seen in movies about presidents and the people who whisper in their ears. The lobby gleamed with chandeliers and marble, and the staff greeted me by name. "Ms. Ellison, welcome. Your suite is ready. Anything you need, anything at all, do not hesitate to ask." Suite, not room, suite. I met the other 3 finalists at the reception that evening. Andre Fuentes from Arizona, a science teacher who had built a robotics program in a district that could barely afford textbooks. May Tanaka from Wisconsin, an English language teacher, helping immigrant children find their voices. Samuel Adeyemi from Georgia, a special education teacher who had developed new ways to reach nonverbal students. We were all nervous, all humbled, all a little overwhelmed. "Can you believe this?" May whispered, gesturing at the room full of officials and policymakers. "Yesterday I was grading spelling tests." Andre nodded. My principal had to convince me the nomination letter was not a scam. We laughed, the relieved laughter of people who had spent their whole careers being underestimated. Then someone handed me a program for the next day's ceremony, and I scanned the list of attendees. Committee members, education secretaries from a dozen states, university presidents, and then I saw it. Guest of honor. Iris Bellamy. Not guest, not attendee, guest of honor. My grandmother was not just coming to watch me. She was being honored herself. What had she done? What was going to happen tomorrow? I found her in the hotel lobby the next morning. She sat in a wing-back chair by the window, the morning light catching the silver in her hair. At 83, she still carried herself like the principal she had been, straight-backed, sharp-eyed, commanding respect without ever once demanding it. She rose when she saw me, and her embrace was fierce. "My girl," she whispered, "my brilliant girl." "Grandma's," I said, pulling back to search her face. "What is going on? Why are you the guest of honor?" She smiled, the smile of a woman holding a wonderful secret. "Sit with me, Harper." We settled into 2 chairs, and she took my hands in hers. "I have been watching your career since the day you first walked into a classroom," she said, her eyes glistening. "Every student you saved, every parent who told me how you stayed late to help their child, every colleague who said you made them want to be a better teacher. You collected stories about me," I said. "I collected evidence," she said, squeezing my hands. "Harper, 6 years ago I wanted to nominate you, but you were not ready. You had not found your voice yet. So, I waited. My throat tightened. The letter said 7 teachers," I said. "All 7 won." She nodded. "I do not put names forward lightly. When I recommend someone, the committee listens, because they know I have done my homework." "Grandma," I said, "there is more, is there not?" She leaned closer. "Tonight, during the ceremony, a former student will speak about each finalist," she said. I arranged for one of yours to be here, someone whose life you changed. Who? I asked. You will see, she said, and her eyes sparkled. And Harper, do not worry about your parents. They will see the broadcast, the whole country will, and when they do, they will finally understand what they were always too blind to notice. She kissed my forehead. Now, go practice your speech. You are going to need it. While I was rehearsing in Washington, 300 miles away, my sister was having lunch. Though I did not know it at the time, I pieced it together later from what other people saw and said, and from a woman at that table who happened to have an unusual past. My sister had chosen an exclusive restaurant where reservations were booked a year out. Her companions were 3 lawyers from rival firms, women she worked beside, competed against, and occasionally called friends. One of them, Kayla Brennan, looked up from her salad. Hey, she said, is your sister a teacher? I saw something online about a national awards ceremony today. My sister waved her fork dismissively. Oh, that, she said. It is just some teacher appreciation thing. You know how those are. Everybody gets a trophy. But National Teacher of the Year, another woman said, skeptical. That sounds significant. Please, my sister laughed. It is not like she is winning a Nobel Prize. It is teaching. The 2 other women exchanged a glance. Teaching is actually incredibly hard, Kayla said carefully. My son's 3rd grade teacher basically saved his life. My sister sipped her wine. I am sure Harper is fine at what she does, she said. But let us be honest. If she had any real ambition, she would not have settled for a $50,000 salary and a classroom full of other people's kids. The table went quiet. What my sister did not know, what none of them told her, was that the 3rd woman at that table, a lawyer named Renee Delgado, had not always been a lawyer. Before she went to law school, she had spent 5 years as an education reporter for a major newspaper. She still had her contacts, and she had her phone out under the edge of the table, typing careful notes on everything that was being said. Some people dig their own graves with their own words. They just do not hear the shovel. That evening, a little before 7, my family arrived at Le Marais, a French restaurant with a view over the city, and took the best table in the house. My sister had ordered a bottle of champagne chilling in a silver bucket. To Sloan, my father said, raising his glass. Partner at 36. I could not be prouder. To Sloan, my mother echoed, her earrings catching the candlelight. They clinked their glasses, they laughed, they ordered appetizers that cost more than I made in a day. This is how you celebrate a real achievement, my father said, leaning back. Not some certificate ceremony in a school gym. My sister smiled. Speaking of which, she said, is Harper's little thing not happening right about now? My mother checked her watch. I suppose so, she said. She said it started at 7. I wonder how many people are even there. My sister snickered. 20, she said. 30, some conference room somewhere, my father agreed. Finger sandwiches and a slideshow. Devin, my sister's husband, stayed quiet. He stared at his plate, his jaw tight. When my sister called it Harper's little thing, he opened his mouth as if to say something, then caught the sharp look she gave him and closed it again. You know, my mother said, I do feel a little bad. Maybe we should have sent flowers. For what? My sister scoffed. She is a teacher, Mom. They hand these things out constantly. Best bulletin board, most improved attendance. It is meaningless. Still, my mother said, she is my daughter, and she chose her path. My father's voice hardened. We offered her every opportunity, he said. She turned them all down. If she wants to waste her potential playing kindergarten, that is her choice. Devin cleared his throat. Actually, he said, I think it is 7th and 8th grade. And the invitation did say, National Teacher of the Devon, my sister said, shooting him a look. Not now, and he fell silent. Across the country, in the grand ballroom of the Kennedy Center, the lights were beginning to dim. 2,000 people were taking their seats. Cameras were preparing to roll, and I was standing behind a curtain with my heart slamming against my ribs. Let me stop here for just one breath, because I need you to feel the size of this. At that exact moment, my family was 300 miles away in a candlelit restaurant, laughing about my little ceremony, and I was standing backstage in Washington, about to walk out in front of the entire country. If you have ever been the one they laughed at, stay with me, because what happened next is the reason I am telling you this at all. The ballroom took my breath away. 2,000 people. Chandeliers throwing golden light across a sea of round tables draped in white. Flags flanking a stage that seemed to stretch on forever. And cameras. So many cameras, positioned at every possible angle. A production assistant touched my elbow. Ms. Ellison, you will enter from stage left when they call your name. Just follow the spotlight. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Through a gap in the curtain, I could see my grandmother in the front row, seated directly behind a placard that read Guest of Honor. She wore her best navy suit and the pearl earrings my grandfather had given her 50 years ago. Her eyes were already shining. The Secretary of Education stepped to the podium, and the cameras swung toward the stage. "Good evening," he said. "We are here tonight to honor the finest educators in America." My phone buzzed once in my clutch. A text from my grandmother. "I am so proud of you. Your parents are about to see what I have always known. The whole country is about to meet the Harper I love." The whole country. The broadcast was live. Education journalists from every major outlet were taking notes. And in Pittsburgh, my family was eating French food, mocking what they were sure was a small, sad little event. "These are teachers who go beyond the curriculum," the secretary continued, "who see potential where others see only problems, who change lives one student at a time." I closed my eyes and breathed. Whatever happened next, I had earned my place in this room, not because of my family's approval, not because of money or status, because I had shown up every single day for 12 years for children who had no one else. My name was called. I stepped into the light. "Before we announce our results," the secretary said, "each finalist will hear from a former student whose life they touched. Please welcome Darius Coleman." My heart stopped. Darius. Little Darius Coleman, who used to sit in the back of my classroom with holes in his shoes and hunger in his eyes, who turned in assignments written on the backs of napkins because he could not afford paper, who once told me, so quietly I almost missed it, that he figured he would probably be dead before he turned 20. But the man walking toward that microphone was not little anymore. Darius Coleman stood well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered in a beautifully tailored suit, a hospital identification badge clipped to his pocket. At 27, he was a resident in pediatric surgery. When I was 16, Darius began, his voice steady. I was homeless. The room fell silent. "My mother was in prison," he said. "I was sleeping in my car. I had given up on everything. School, life, myself. And then I walked into Ms. Ellison's English class." He paused and looked directly at me. "She noticed things," he said. "That I was always hungry. That I wore the same clothes every day. That I flinched when people moved too fast." His voice cracked. "She never announced any of it. She never once made me feel like a charity case. She just helped." I felt the tears building. "She bought me food," he said. "She drove me to scholarship interviews. She stayed after school for hours helping me with my college applications. When I got my acceptance, she was the first person I called. Not because she was my teacher, because she was the first adult who ever believed I could be something." He wiped his eyes. "Miss Ellison did not save my life with some grand gesture," he said. "She saved it with small acts of kindness every single day. I am a doctor tonight because of her." And 2,000 people rose to their feet. 2,000 strangers standing and applauding for me. The applause faded, and the secretary returned to the podium with a cream-colored envelope in his hands. "The committee reviewed hundreds of nominations from across the nation," he said. "The 4 finalists you have met tonight represent the very best of American education." He paused. "But only one can receive our highest honor." I could not breathe. Beside me, May gripped my hand. Andre closed his eyes. Samuel whispered something that sounded like a prayer. The secretary broke the seal. "This year's National Teacher of the Year is," and then a silence that seemed to last a lifetime, "Harper Ellison of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania." The room exploded. I did not move. I could not move. May had to physically push me forward. "Go," she laughed through her tears. "Go." The walk to that stage felt like a dream. Lights blurring, applause thundering. 2,000 people on their feet for a teacher from an underfunded middle school who had simply refused to give up on her kids. The secretary shook my hand. Cameras flashed, and in the crowd I found Darius crying openly now, clapping so hard his hands must have ached. Our eyes met, and he mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." No, I thought. "Thank you, Darius, for becoming living proof that what I do matters." Someone placed a crystal trophy in my hands, so beautiful I was almost afraid to hold it. "Congratulations, Miss Ellison," the secretary said, leaning close. "Your grandmother is a force of nature. She has been telling everyone you would win for months." I looked out and found my grandmother in the front row. She was sobbing, joyfully, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. I had never once in my whole life seen her cry. At the bottom of the broadcast, a headline appeared. Breaking. Pittsburgh teacher Harper Ellison named National Teacher of the Year, nominated by legendary educator Iris Bellamy. Millions of people saw that headline, including, though I did not know it yet, 3 people in a French restaurant who had just ordered dessert. Back in Pittsburgh, at a little before 8, my father wiped his mouth with a napkin and reached for his phone. The alert sat at the top of his screen. He almost scrolled past it, And then he saw the photograph, and his hand froze. The image showed a woman on a stage shaking hands with a man in a dark suit, an enormous screen behind them reading National Teacher of the Year. The woman was his daughter. "Gordon," my mother said, noticing his face. "What is it?" "Bad news from the market." He could not speak. He held the phone out with a trembling hand. My mother took it, squinted, and went pale. "That is," she said, "that is Harper." "What?" my sister said, grabbing the phone. Her wine glass tipped over, red spreading across the white tablecloth like something spilled and irreversible. "No," she said, "no." She said it was just a small ceremony. "The Secretary of Education," my father whispered. "She is shaking hands with the Secretary of Education." Devin leaned over to look, and his face was unreadable. "That is a national broadcast," he said quietly. "This is going out to the whole country." My sister scrolled frantically. More photographs. Me at the podium, me holding the crystal trophy, me surrounded by applauding officials. And then the video began to play. A young man at a microphone, tears on his face. Ms. Ellison did not save my life with some grand gesture. She saved it with small acts of kindness, every single day. "Oh my God," my sister said, barely audible. This is actually a big deal." The restaurant went on around them. Waiters moving, diners laughing, music playing. And my family sat frozen in the middle of all of it. Back in Washington, I stood at the podium clutching my trophy, looking out at 2,000 faces waiting for me to speak. The teleprompter was ready. I had written a safe speech, full of statistics about school funding and gentle platitudes about the importance of teachers. I ignored every word of it. Growing up, I began, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. I was told that teaching was not a real career. The audience shifted. This was not the gracious little thank you they were expecting. I was told I was wasting my potential, I said, that I would never amount to anything, that success meant money, and that teachers were just people who could not make it anywhere else. Silence. "But tonight," I said, "I am standing here because of one person who never stopped believing in me." I found my grandmother's eyes in the crowd, my grandmother, Iris Bellamy. The camera swung to her, and she pressed a hand to her heart. "Grandma," I said, "you taught me something my parents never could. That a life is not measured by a salary or a title. It is measured by the people you change, the students you lift up, the seeds you plant that keep blooming long after you are gone." I thought of Darius, of the hundreds of students who had passed through room 214, of the wall of thank you cards. "To every teacher watching tonight," I said, "your work matters, your sacrifices matter. Your students will remember you long after they have forgotten what you taught them, because they will always remember how you made them feel." And then I looked straight into the main camera. "And to anyone out there who has ever been told they were not enough," I said, "you are. Your worth is not decided by the people who refuse to see it. Find the people who do, hold on to them, and never ever apologize for following your heart." The standing ovation lasted 3 full minutes. I never once said my parents' names. I did not have to. Everyone watching understood exactly who was not in that room. The phone started ringing before the applause even ended. In Pittsburgh, my father's screen lit up with call after call. His golf partner, "Gordon, just saw your daughter on the news. Why are you not there?" He let it go to voicemail. His brother, "Hey, Harper is all over television. You must be so proud. Where are you watching from?" Voicemail. My mother's phone buzzed with calls from their neighbor, their pastor, her book club, all asking the same question. "Why are you not with Harper?" My sister's phone was the worst of all. Messages flooded in from colleagues, from old classmates, from people she barely remembered. "Saw your sister on TV, so cool. Why were you not at the ceremony?" "Just watched her speech. She thanked someone who believed in her. That is you, right?" My sister stared at that last message for a long time. The lie would have been so easy. Yes, of course, I am her biggest supporter. But people had seen the broadcast. They had heard me thank my grandmother, and only my grandmother. A woman approached their table, gray-haired, a kind face, a napkin still in her hand. "Excuse me," she said. I could not help but notice. "Are you Harper Ellison's family?" She pointed at the phone still clutched in my mother's hand. "I just watched her win on television. You must be so proud." My father managed a smile. "Yes," he said, "very proud." The woman's face shifted. "Wait," she said. "Why are you not at the ceremony?" "Washington is not that far." My mother fumbled. "There were no flights," she said. "Flights," the woman said, frowning. "It is a 4-hour drive." The table went silent, and the woman's expression changed from confusion to understanding to something close to pity. "Oh," she said quietly. "I see." And she walked away without another word. My family sat there in their expensive restaurant, surrounded by witnesses to their own absence. My sister excused herself and went to the restroom. She needed to control this, contain it, spin it. Her fingers flew across her phone. "So proud of my amazing little sister Harper," she wrote. "Wish we could have been there tonight. Family always comes first." She attached a screenshot of me from the broadcast, cropped and filtered, and she posted it. Within seconds, the comments began. "Congratulations to your sister. Teachers are heroes. So sweet that you support her." My sister exhaled, crisis managed. And then a new comment appeared. It was Renee Delgado, the lawyer from lunch. The one my sister had forgotten used to be a journalist. "Funny," Renee wrote. "At lunch today, you called this just a teacher appreciation thing and said teaching was not a real career. What changed?" My sister's blood ran cold. More comments poured in. "Wait, what? Renee, please explain." Yikes. This is awkward. And Renee did not post a screenshot, which could be doctored or dismissed. She simply wrote down, word for word, what my sister had said at that table. And then 3 other women who had been there added their names beneath it. "Can confirm," one wrote. It was uncomfortable to sit through. The post exploded. My sister deleted it, but the screenshots had already been taken. Someone had already reshared it. Someone else was already making a video about it. Her phone buzzed with a message from a senior partner at her firm. "Sloan, heads up. Some clients are asking about the situation online with your sister. The education nonprofit we represent has seen it. You may want to get ahead of this." My sister's stomach dropped. The education nonprofit was the firm's largest client that worked without a fee, the case she had been assigned to lead. She typed back, handling it now. "But how do you handle a truth that is already loose in the world?" Her hands shook. She tried to call me. Voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. A text from Devin. "Maybe come back to the table," he wrote. "People are staring." She looked at herself in the mirror. Perfect hair, perfect makeup. The perfect lawyer who had everything. Everything except her sister's respect. And now, possibly, everyone else's too. My hotel room was quiet. The ceremony had ended hours before. The reception and the photographs and the endless handshakes, all blurring into a golden haze. Now it was nearly midnight, and I sat on the edge of the bed, trophy on the nightstand, phone face down on the comforter. I knew they were trying to reach me. 47 missed calls from my father, 23 from my mother, 15 from my sister. I had not opened a single voicemail. I did not want to hear their excuses, or their explanations, or their sudden, convenient pride, now that the whole world was watching. There was a soft knock at my door. My grandmother stood in the hallway, wrapped in a hotel robe, her eyes still red. "May I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She settled into the armchair by the window, and for a long moment we simply sat, looking out at the monument glowing white against the dark sky. "Do you want to talk to them?" she finally asked. I shook my head. "Not tonight. That is your right," she said. I turned to look at her. "Did you know this would happen?" I asked. "That they would see it." She smiled softly. "I knew the broadcast would reach them," she said. "What they chose to do with that was always going to be up to them." Her eyes met mine. "Harper, I did not arrange tonight to punish your parents. I arranged it to honor you. Whatever they are feeling right now is a consequence of their own choices, not yours." I felt the tears threatening again. "I just wanted them to show up once," I said. "I know, sweetheart," she said, reaching for my hand. "But some people can only see the worth of a thing after the rest of the world has pointed at it. That is their limitation. It was never yours." I leaned into her shoulder, and for the first time in my whole life, I did not need anyone else's approval. I already had my own. 1 week after Washington, the fallout was still spreading. My father walked into his regular game at the golf club, 4 men he had known for 30 years, and one of them called out, "How is our celebrity father doing?" The others laughed, not with him, but at him. "I heard you missed the ceremony because you were too busy," one said, adjusting his glove. "Busy doing what?" another said. "Eating French food." My father's face reddened. "We had a prior commitment," he said. "To celebrate your other daughter," a third man said, shaking his head. Meanwhile, Harper is shaking hands with cabinet members on national television. "Some prior commitment, Gordon. My mother did not fare any better. At her book club that Thursday, the women who usually discussed novels spent the first 20 minutes discussing my speech instead. That line about finding the people who believe in you," one said. "So beautiful. Were you there when she said it?" My mother stirred her tea. "We watched from home," she said. "From home?" another woman asked, raising an eyebrow. "But it was in Washington. That is only a few hours away." "We could not get flights," my mother said. "Flights," a third woman laughed. "You can drive there." My mother set down her teacup and left early. But the worst of it was reserved for my sister. The screenshots had spread. A local paper ran a small piece about a lawyer's lunch, comments about her teacher sister going viral. The following Monday, my sister was quietly taken off the education nonprofit case. It is not a punishment, her supervising partner told her. It is optics. The client specifically requested a different attorney. No one mentioned the post directly. They did not have to. Her path to the top was not blocked, exactly. But she had learned something. A reputation is not only about the cases you win. It is about who people believe you are when they think no one is watching. 2 weeks after Washington, I agreed to dinner at my parents' house. Not because I wanted to, because I was ready. The house looked exactly the same. Same brick, same manicured lawn, same wreath on the door that my mother changed with the seasons. But when I walked through that door, everything felt different because I was different. My family was already in the living room. My father in his armchair, my mother on the sofa, my sister perched on the edge of a cushion like she might need to bolt. No one stood to greet me. "Harper," my father said, clearing his throat. "We need to talk about what happened." I stayed standing. "What happened," I said, "is that I won an award and you did not come. That is what happened. It is more complicated than that," he said. "Is it?" I said, keeping my voice level. "Because from where I am standing, it is very simple. I invited you to the most important night of my career. You laughed at me and went to dinner instead." My mother twisted her hands. "We did not know it was such a big deal," she said. "I sent you the invitation," I said. It said national, it said Secretary of Education, it said live broadcast. I looked at each of them, which part was unclear. My sister stood up abruptly. "Fine," she said. "You want an apology. I am sorry we did not come to your ceremony. Happy now." "No, Sloan," I said. "I do not want an apology." "Then what do you want?" she said. I took a breath. "I want you to understand something," I said. "For 32 years I have tried to earn your respect, tried to make you proud, tried to prove that my choices were valid, even if they were not the choices you would have made." I paused. "I am done trying." The room went silent. My hands were trembling slightly, and I clasped them together to hide it, because 32 years of wanting their approval does not vanish in a single night. Part of me still wanted my father to stand up and say he was proud. Part of me still wanted my mother to hug me and mean it. But I had learned something in Washington. Wanting a thing does not mean you need it to survive. "What does that mean?" my father said, his voice sharp. "It means things are going to change," I said. "Harper," he said, leaning forward, "you are overreacting. We made a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake is forgetting a birthday," I said. "What you did was deliberate." "Deliberate," he scoffed. "We did not deliberately." "You read my invitation," I said, and my voice did not waver. "You saw exactly what it was, and you decided consciously that dinner was more important. That is not a mistake. That is a choice." My mother's eyes welled up. "Harper, please," she said. "You are hurting us. I am hurting you." I almost laughed. "Mom, you liked Sloane's message, rejecting me. You did not say one word in my defense. You never do." "I did not mean it that way," she said. "Then how did you mean it?" I asked. She had no answer. My sister crossed her arms. "You are being incredibly dramatic about all of this," she said. "One missed event, and suddenly we are the villains." "One event," I said, turning to face her fully. "This was never about one event, Sloane. This is about 32 years of being second, of being dismissed, of watching every one of my achievements shrink while yours were celebrated." "That is not true," she said. "You called my career lowly," I said. "You told your friends my award was meaningless. You posted a fake congratulations online while the screenshots of your real words were going viral. You could not even be honest about how little you think of me." Her face flushed, and for once she had nothing to say. My father stood, trying to take back control of the room. "Enough," he said. "This is family business. We will work it out privately like adults." "No," I said, and the word came out calm and certain. "We will not work it out by pretending nothing happened. That is what we have always done. That is exactly how we got here." "Then what do you suggest?" he said. I looked at my father, the man who had spent my entire life measuring my worth in dollars. "I suggest," I said, "that you start listening." I gathered my coat and my purse. "Where are you going?" my mother said, her voice rising. "We are not finished." "Yes," I said, turning at the doorway. "We are. I am not cutting you out of my life. But I am done being the family afterthought. The one who shows up no matter how she is treated. The one who apologizes for taking up space." "Harper," my father started. "Let me finish," I said, and there was a strength in my voice I did not know I had. "From now on, I will come to family events when I am treated with respect. I will answer calls when I feel like talking. I will visit when I am actually welcome, not merely tolerated." My sister rolled her eyes. "So you are giving us rules now," she said. "I am giving myself boundaries," I said. "There is a difference." "This is ridiculous," my father said, his face red. "We are your parents. You cannot just—" "I can," I said, meeting his eyes. "And I am. You spent 32 years teaching me that my worth depended on your approval. It took me far too long to learn that you were wrong. My mother was crying now, real tears streaming down her face, and part of me wanted to cross the room and comfort her. Old habits. But another part, the part that had stood on that stage in Washington and heard Darius describe how I changed his life, that part held firm. "If you want to be part of my life," I said, "you need to see me. Really see me. Not the daughter you wish I were. Not the teacher you are embarrassed by. Me." I opened the front door and the cool autumn air rushed in. "I hope you can do that," I said quietly. "But if you cannot, I will survive. I have built a good life, a meaningful one, with or without your blessing." And I stepped outside, and the door closed softly behind me, and I did not look back. 6 months later, spring light was pouring through the windows of my new apartment, a 2-bedroom in a converted brownstone, twice the size of my old place. The award had come with prize money I had not expected, enough for a down payment on a real home. I stood in my kitchen writing lesson plans, coffee steaming beside me. On the wall hung a framed photograph from Washington, my grandmother and me, arms around each other, both of us crying and laughing at the very same time. My phone buzzed. It was Darius. "Mrs. Ellison," he wrote. "I matched into a fellowship at UCSF. I nearly dropped my coffee." "Darius," I wrote back, "that is incredible. I could not have done it without you," he wrote. "I wanted you to be the first to know." After we hung up, I just sat with the feeling. Pride, purpose, the kind of quiet satisfaction that no salary in the world could ever buy. My family still called sometimes. My mother more than my father. My sister almost never. I answered when I felt like it, and that was the whole difference. I no longer waited by the phone hoping for their approval. I no longer arranged my life around their opinions. In April, I was invited to the White House, a tradition for the National Teacher of the Year. The president shook my hand in the rose garden. "Thank you for what you do," he said. And I thought about my father, who had once called my career lowly. And I wondered, for just a moment, if he was watching. Me, Harper Ellison, from Pittsburgh, standing in the rose garden. And then I let the thought go, because I no longer needed him to be watching. On my desk sat a letter from the Department of Education. They wanted to film a short documentary about my grandmother and me, 2 generations of teachers, the legacy we had built together. And beside it was a small cream-colored envelope. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting at once. My father's. I opened it slowly. "Harper," it read, "I was wrong about your career, about what matters about you. I do not expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry, Dad." I read it twice and set it down gently. 6 months earlier, that letter would have meant everything. I would have called him immediately, rushed over, tried to rebuild bridges that were never really there. Now I felt something different. Not anger, not triumph, just peace. I would respond eventually, when I was ready, on my own terms. An apology is a beginning, not a key. It does not automatically unlock the door. It only earns you the chance to start knocking. Outside my window, the cherry trees were beginning to bloom. Fresh starts. The cycle of renewal that teachers understand better than anyone, because every September brings a new beginning, and every class is another chance to change a life. I thought about that night in the restaurant, my father's face going white, the phones ringing off the table. The moment they finally saw what I had been all along. But here is what I learned. I did not need that moment for myself. I already knew my worth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us most are the last ones to see us clearly. Sometimes they never do. And somehow, that has to be all right. My grandmother once told me that the best teachers do not teach subjects. They teach students. They see potential where other people see only problems. They plant seeds that keep blooming long after they are gone. I understood finally that she had been teaching me all along, not just how to be an educator, how to be myself. And in the end, that was the only lesson that ever really mattered. So here is what all of it taught me, and I want to leave it with you before you go. Your worth is not decided by the people who refuse to see it, so find the ones who do and hold them close. Walking away is not the same as giving up. Sometimes it is the bravest thing a person can do, and boundaries are not walls. They are the bridges to every healthier thing that comes next. And the best answer to the people who called you small is not revenge. It is simply this. You build a life so full and so true that their opinion of it stops being a room you have to live in. For 32 years, my father called me just a teacher. It turned out that was never the small thing he thought it was. I am a teacher. It is the proudest sentence I know. If this story found you tonight for a reason, tell me the moment you finally chose yourself, because I read every single one. Take care of yourself out there. No one can do it quite the way you can.